Hey everybody, Jeff from Visionary Financial. Wanted to bring you guys a video to conclude the week here in terms of Bitcoin and what I'm looking for in the short term. Before I move forward, anything I do say is strictly my own opinion. It is not investment advice whatsoever. This was an interesting week for Bitcoin, especially with Square announcing that they were deploying $50 million into Bitcoin, which was equivalent to about 1% of their total assets. A lot of investors saw this being a short-term price catalyst. I'm under the impression that it's actually going to be more beneficial in the longer term. And the reason I say that is, by the time Square announced that they were investing $50 million into Bitcoin, that transaction already happened on the back end. So I'm under the impression that this was already priced into the market, and anything that happened after that announcement is more speculation in my opinion. So I do think it's going to be beneficial for Bitcoin in the long term for various reasons. What I'm looking at on the short term is more of what's going on a macro basis. And for the last 2 months now at Visionary Financial, we've been stressing the importance of Bitcoin versus the dollar. Historically speaking, Bitcoin and the dollar are highly, highly uncorrelated. And we can see that by just looking at a 1-year chart here. If we were to go back to March of this year, it is not a coincidence that as the dollar made its yearly high, Bitcoin made its yearly low. Okay, and this trend has continued throughout the year. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not a perfect science, but if you were to go back 5 years, for example, and analyze all that data, you would see that there's definitely a high uncorrelation between the dollar and Bitcoin. And what we're entering right now is a time where the government is agreeing to potentially pass additional stimulants. Today, the White House announced that they were interested in passing another 1.8 trillion, and to date, the government has already injected 6 trillion, right, to essentially keep the markets afloat during the ongoing pandemic. The problem with this is it's put substantial downward pressure on the US dollar, and the reason for that is you cannot print unlimited amounts of money out of thin air in a zero interest rate environment and expect the reserve currency to soar. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing a US dollar that hit its yearly low back in August of this year, and it started an uptrend, but there's never been enough certainty in the market for it to get anywhere close to the levels it was earlier this year. And you're starting to see additional downward pressure, especially as there's more substance to another stimulus deal being cracked by the Democrats and Republicans here in the foreseeable future. So that's something we're going to be looking at. We're already starting to see Bitcoin react a little bit today as the dollar has some downward pressure. So we will be looking at this going into the weekend, going into next week. We are not sure when the next stimulants will be introduced. McConnell, for example, said it could be 3 weeks, while other people said it could be sooner. So that's something we will be watching because I think it will put additional downward pressure on the dollar, causing Bitcoin to potentially reach its yearly highs. So if we go to Bitcoin on the technical side of things, what we've stressed now as well is the importance of Bitcoin getting over that 6,000 or 10,600 level. Since about mid-September, Bitcoin has been in consolidation mode. And it's a longer consolidation than we're used to, and that simply means that Bitcoin's trading sideways. And what we know from trading equities, from trading cryptocurrency, is the longer the consolidation, the longer the rip. Okay, and Bitcoin is ready to go on another run, whether it's north or south. And 10,600 was accomplished this week, which was a positive sign. In addition, Bitcoin jumped over the 50-day moving average, which is outlined here with this white line. And historically speaking, when Bitcoin has surpassed the 50-day MA, it has seen significant upward pressure. Back in July of this year, it occurred. Back in April of this year, it occurred. And back in January of this year, it occurred. And again, each event that this occurred saw significant upward momentum. And we're seeing that start to happen here. So going into next week, a few things we're going to be watching is, will the government pass another stimulus bill? And on the technical side, we're going to be making sure that Bitcoin holds above 10,600 and holds above that 50-day moving average. We hope you guys have a good weekend.